Have you ever wondered what makes you exactly who you are in this very moment? We often think of our personality as a mysterious cloud of feelings and choices that we control. But imagine for a second that inside your head there is a very complex physical machine working every second. This machine has wires and parts and chemicals that decide if you are calm or if you are angry. Scientists spend their whole lives trying to look inside this machine to find the secret code of human behavior. They look at the shapes and the shadows of the brain to see why some people are kind and why others are capable of terrible things. It is a strange feeling to think that our deepest, darkest actions might be written in our physical body long before we ever make a choice. This brings us to a very deep question about the balance between our biology and our environment. On the surface, we see that certain parts of the brain seem to be connected to how we control our emotions. There is a specific area right above our eyes that helps us stop ourselves from doing things that might hurt others. If this area is not working well or if it has been damaged, it is like a car with no brakes. We might see someone who is very aggressive or who cannot feel empathy and we think they are just a bad person. But the science suggests that there is a physical pattern involved in these behaviors. Every person who shows this pattern of violence seems to have a similar type of brain structure that is not functioning correctly. It is not just one spot but a combination of areas that fail to talk to each other. This physical reality is the first thing we notice when we look at the data. It makes us realize that the brain is a delicate organ and even a small change can lead to a very different life. However, we must look deeper because the brain is not the only thing at play here. There is a hidden assumption that if you have a certain brain shape or a certain gene, then your path in life is already decided. We often assume that biology is destiny. We think that if someone carries a specific violence gene, they are born to be a killer. This is a very scary thought because it takes away our sense of freedom. But we are finding that these genes are actually very common in the normal population. You or someone you love might carry these same markers in your DNA right now. These genes are often passed down from a mother to a son because of how our chromosomes work. This is why we see more men exhibiting this specific kind of aggression. But the presence of the gene is not enough to create a monster. This is the big secret that we often overlook. The gene is like a seed that needs a specific kind of soil to grow. Without that soil, the seed stays asleep and never does any harm. This tells us that our physical makeup is only one part of a much larger story. We see a structural pattern emerging that we can call the three-legged stool of human behavior. The first leg is the physical structure of the brain, especially the areas that handle impulses. The second leg is the genetic code we inherit from our parents, like those specific markers for aggression. But the third leg is the most important, and it is the environment where a child grows up. This pattern shows us that for a person to truly become a dangerous individual, all three legs usually need to be present. They need the brain damage and the genes and a history of trauma or abuse in their early life. If you take away one of those legs, the stool falls over. This means that even with the wrong brains and the wrong genes, a person who is raised with love and care can become a perfectly normal and kind member of society. This pattern changes everything about how we see the dark side of humanity. It shows us that we are not just machines and we are not just products of our ancestors. We are an interaction between nature and nurture. Let us reframe this with a new perspective on responsibility and hope. Instead of looking at a criminal brain and seeing an inevitable disaster, we can look at it as a warning of vulnerability. A person with these biological markers is like someone with very fair skin standing in the hot sun. The skin itself is not the problem, but the sun makes it dangerous. In this way, the genes are not a death sentence but a sign that a person needs a very gentle and supportive environment. This reframing allows us to move away from blame and toward understanding. It suggests that our society has a massive role in protecting those who might be biologically at risk. We can stop focusing so much on the darkness inside the brain and start focusing on the light we can provide through community and family. This perspective gives us a way to intervene and change the ending of the story. It reminds us that empathy and love are not just nice ideas but are actually biological tools that can turn off dangerous genetic switches. When we apply this to our daily lives, we can start to look at our own tempers and habits with more compassion. We all have moments where we feel a flash of anger or a lack of patience. Instead of just feeling guilty, we can ask ourselves what our internal machine is doing. We can learn to build our own brakes through mindfulness and healthy habits. We can also be more aware of how we treat the children in our lives. Knowing that a kind word or a safe home can literally protect a child from their own genetics is a very powerful piece of knowledge. It makes our everyday actions feel much more significant. We are not just being polite, we are helping to wire the brains of the next generation. We can choose to be the positive environment that keeps a dangerous gene from ever waking up. This is a responsibility that we all share. It means that every time we choose kindness over anger, we are contributing to a safer world. As we reflect on this, we realize that the human experience is a beautiful and complex dance between what we are born with and how we are treated. We are more than the sum of our parts. Our brains are flexible and our lives are not set in stone. We are the builders of the world that surrounds those brains. We can create a culture that balances the scales for those who started with a disadvantage. This brings us back to the realization that science does not take away our humanity, but it explains why our humanity is so vital. The more we learn about the mechanics of violence, the more we see the necessity of compassion. We are all walking around with different biological blueprints, but we are all living in the same house. How we care for that house determines if the blueprints turn into something beautiful or something tragic. We must continue to explore the mysteries of the mind while never forgetting the power of the heart. The brain might provide the map, but the environment provides the weather for the journey. We are the ones who decide which path to take. If you knew that your own biology held a secret potential for darkness, would you trust the person you have become to keep that light burning?